Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'm in the Houston, Texas area, and it looks like it might be a beautiful day coming forth. Yeah, a little cloudy. See a lot of blue coming through. A lot of pretty white clouds. Clearly I can see outside my window, right? I'm gonna wait and give a few folks time to get on before I start sharing what's on my heart today. And the subject matter today is from shutdown to stand up. And we all experience seasons in our life, and if you haven't, you might still, where you either feel shut down or you are shut down. And you need to make a new decision. And you need to be able to stand up. And sometimes, honestly, it's a season to stand up. Sometimes you just get up that moment when you realize you're shutting down. And then there are times when God in His smartness helps us make the new decisions privately until we are strong enough to stand up. Every person is in a different place. And God helps each one of us individually because He's not a cookie cutter God. Though we're all made in His image and though we all have Him living inside of us because He's so smart, even in that place, we're each made individually and we all need one another as a body to help one another, to figure out how to move forward. And listen, moving forward is not always comfortable. Standing up is not always comfortable. Shutting down sometimes is a go-to because it can be comfortable, because it doesn't require as much effort to be shut down as it does to stand up. And sometimes we truly have to even see that we're shut down. Sometimes you need a friend to come alongside, someone who could speak truth to you and say, do you see that you're shut down? Do you see that you're not moving? Do you understand that you need to get going, right? Well, I'm still waiting for a few folks to jump on. I remember years ago, I had, just to be transparent, I had a doctor tell me some things that were not pleasant. And it was quite troubling. And at that time in my life, literally all my friends left. It was really weird. I had this close group of friends, and literally just like that, all of them were gone, and I was standing alone. And I didn't know what to do other than shut down. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know at the time that I was shutting down. And I went through just what I guess you call darkness, where I got very sober-minded. I got very quiet. I got very meditative. And I just went into a place inside of me, pondering, wondering, not knowing how to respond, what to do. This moves forward literally for 2 years. And I remember years ago, there was a pastor by the name of Bo. And if you've been around long enough or been around me long enough, you might remember Pastor Bo. And I recall one day when I was at Encourager 20-something years ago, I was walking down in the sanctuary, and he stopped me and he looked at me and he said, Donna, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm fine, I'm good. Because when you're shut down, you usually don't tell anybody. And if you do tell somebody, you better tell somebody who knows how to help you and not just anybody, because somebody else will go, oh, poor baby. Oh, you don't need that. He looked at me and he said, depression is one thing, but despair is another. It's difficult to come out of despair when you live there. That's all he said to me. And I got to chewing on that, and I realized I had been slipping into despair. I had experienced some folks dying. I'd experienced some job loss. I'd experienced some things in my life that hit me really hard. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to turn to. I felt very alone. And I had slipped into despair. And so I began that moment, like starting over. I began that moment. And I began to just turn my attention little by little by little by little back into life, back into hope, back into boldness, back into confidence, back into living, back into living. And it was little by little by little for me at that time. I didn't know really how to respond to even that word he gave me other than little by little by little. Now, I had someone who walked out life with me as a brand new believer who helped me learn how to live in truth, how to forgive, how to change my mind about things. But that season with that person was not taking place right at that moment. And so I just had to figure it out myself. And it took me a couple of years to literally move out of despair. It was very, very difficult. So I went from shut down to standing up. But for me, it was like shut down, then sitting, and then crawling, and then trying to rise, and then finally getting a stand, and then finally trying to walk, and then trying to walk fast, and then trying to run. It really was a long process for me. That was then. That was then. Today's topic is from shut down to stand up. And I want to give you an example of what it means to be shutting down. So imagine yourself in a car right now. I want you to literally close your eyes and think of yourself being in a vehicle. Just think of being in a vehicle, and all of a sudden you feel that vehicle shutting down, and all of a sudden it stops, and you're not moving. That is shut down. Shut down is with on the inside you're not moving. It could be on the outside as well, but shut down is when on the inside you're not moving. Like a vehicle, it's just not moving. And sometimes your insides even may want to move, but you're not moving. You're not moving. You're not moving. So what if mentally and emotionally you have areas in your life right now that you shut down? And I say you shut down because it is our response that causes us to shut down. No one else can give you, then cause you to shut down. It is your response. It is your response that allows you to choose to shut down or not shut down. Now, when you are in a place where you are shutting down, normally, that feeling is attached to something from the past. It may not make sense that it's from the past, but normally it is from the past. And you may have absolutely no idea where that feeling is coming from. You may have no clue. Listen, if you have an area that is dealing with you and wanting you to shut down, maybe you have a responsibility on you right now that is so intense and so strong that everything within you wants to run away or close yourself off in a room because it's so scary. Because it's so scary. Look, real life is scary. Real life has things that come that are scary. It's what are we going to do with the scare? How are we going to respond to what comes that scares the bejeebers out of us? What are we going to do? That is the question. That is a question. So the area where we are challenged in that place where perhaps it's scary and we want to shut down, what if I told you that is the area that you're called to have your greatest victory in? What if that place where fear wants to lodge in and steal, kill, and destroy you and your environment and those around you is the area where God's love wants to pour in such a strong, strong way that your victory is true, your victory is real, and your victory rules your environment, rules you, rules those around you, just because of the overflow. Look, this is not make-believe stuff. This is not some hokey-pokey thing. This is not some myth. But it does require effort. Why does it require effort? Because it requires effort to be still and even listen or hear the love of God. And when you have been shut down and when you've been a recluse on the inside, Sometimes you don't want people to touch you. Sometimes you don't want people around you. Sometimes you're like, somebody touches you, you're like, whoa, what are you doing? Or I know someone, not to deviate, but I know someone who has really lost most of their friends and because of some sicknesses and things. And now they're accustomed to not having anybody talk to them. So when you see them and when you attempt to hug them, do you know what that person's response is? That hurts. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, don't touch me. Why? They've been in reclusivity so long. They don't know how to receive someone's touch. They've been shut down. Sometimes it's you who's been shut down, and sometimes you're around someone who's been shut down. Listen, it's one thing to have a spiritual message. It's another thing to be in a life where you are confronting these things and they're confronting you, and they're real, and they're real, and they're real. You can be scared and it be real. The scare is real. Love of God, even greater so. But the scare is real. It is real. It wants to overpower. It wants to take everything you believe in, chew it up, spit it out, and cause you to feel like you failed, like you're never going to make it, like there's no way you'll ever be able to stand. You could have been shut down through a sickness. You could have been shut down through an immoral action on your own. You could have been shut down through someone's words over you where you received them and you decided that must be who you are when it's not who you are at all. It is our response that determines whether we stay in shutdown or whether we stand up. And sometimes it is a process to stand up. Do not disdain the days of small beginnings. If you are completely laid, listen, I know someone I worked with for a couple years, and this person was completely shut down, mostly in bed for 2 years, literally, mostly in bed, with a family to take care of, okay, with a family. They could barely move mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. They were out. And when I met this person, it was actually at a funeral. And God tugged on my heart to call that person into my life. And I walked out life with this person. That person had suicide dealing with them. That person had sickness coming after them and their family. That person had shut down that wanted to keep that person down. Why? Because that person's greatest victory was in standing up. And the unbelief inside just kept putting down. And that person needed not just one word of the Lord. That person needed a continual word from the Lord for them to decide they were worth standing up for. For them to decide. I told them, listen, until you can believe in you, you just lean into my belief for you. Until you can believe you. But you know what? They believe in themselves now, and they have stood up. And they're running their race, and they're running well. I encourage you, if you're around someone who's in shutdown, love them well. Love them well. Invite them to stand up. Invite them to sit up. Invite them to crawl. Get on the floor and crawl with them. Listen, no one is better than. We're all different in how we respond to life, but we all need one another. We all need one another. Nobody can make it on their own. It's just reality, folks. Nobody can make it on their own. You may think you can, and you may do so for a season. But listen, God made us on purpose. It's this way, and it's this way. And it's purposeful. It's purposeful. So don't give up on you, and don't give up on that person. That person that has been in shutdown. Don't get frustrated with them. Don't say, what the heck's your problem? Why don't you get your butt up? Why don't you go do this? Why don't you go do... Don't do that to them. Don't do that to them. Walk out life with them. There may come a time when they need a strong word. May come a time when they need a deadline. Look, I've worked with people before on deadline situations where they got to a place where they were strong enough and then they needed a deadline in order to take action because fear so paralyzed them. But, they needed someone to believe in them, to help them find their own courage, to help them find their own bravery, to help them go from shutting down to standing up. And you just get to crawl with them until they're strong enough to stand. You don't want someone just standing up. You know how sometimes, listen, you ever gone with somebody to the hospital and you got somebody in the hospital and they just make that person who's been in the hospital for weeks now just stand up. If they stand up long enough, well, then they get to go home. Or if they stand up and they just walk to the end of the room and back, they can go home. Well, walking to the end of the room and back doesn't mean they have the strength to walk down the hallway, get on the elevator, go down the elevator, and go to the parking lot and then get in their car and drive home. Sometimes you need to be with somebody long enough to make sure they actually have the real strength to make it out there and not just in their hospital room. Does this make sense to anybody? Are you understanding what I'm saying? From shutdown to stand up. From shutdown to stand up. Don't turn back on them and don't turn back on you. Don't give up on them and don't give up on you. And don't give in to the voices in your head that tell you it's not worth it to walk out journey with them. And don't give in to the voices in your head that say you'll never stand. You'll never stand. The place where you are shut down is indeed going to be your greatest victory. It can be your greatest victory. It can be your greatest victory. The voices that come, the thoughts that come, the unbelief that comes, they are not coming from a place of authority. They're not coming from a place of authority. They're coming from a place where there has been, perhaps you've given someone power in your life. You've given some voices and some thoughts and some ideas of power in your life. But that doesn't mean they're your authority. One person is saying something. If someone has been in the dark for a while, shining a light directly into his or her eyes can be painful, but turning on a light around them is helpful. Good word. Good word. Turning on a light around them. And you know what? You're the light. You're the light around them. It doesn't mean you see my little lamp here. It doesn't mean you're just turning on a lamp. Although, you know what? You might need to turn on a lamp in somebody's bedroom if they're just laying there doing nothing. And let them get used to that light. But don't give in and don't give up and don't turn back. Remember that the voices and the thoughts and the ideas that lead you to stay shut down are not from a place of true authority. You may have given them power in your life, but that doesn't mean that they have the ultimate authority over you or in you. The power of unbelief is not as great as the authority where belief comes from. So you can decide today in the areas where you are powerless, where you feel powerless enough to remain in shutdown. First of all, you need to recognize, are you in shutdown or not? Or do you know someone in shutdown? Do you know someone who has been shut down or you see them shutting down? How do you get them to stand up? First, you get you to stand up. And you approach them with great love. And you know what? What's beautiful is you don't necessarily have to knock on that person's door and say, hey, by the way, I've been noticing you've been shutting down. You know, you might not want to say that to somebody. You might just go alongside of them and have a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll just go over and have a little bite to eat or bring them a bite to eat. They don't even have to know that you know that they've chosen darkness as their friend. You don't have to know, and they don't have to know. You can just love them. Love transforms. It can be sneaky or obvious. Love transforms. So let's look at an area where you might find yourself in a place of weakness. Or you know someone who looks like they've shut down. Consider that for a moment with me. Just give it a few seconds and consider. Do you know someone who's in shutdown? Are you in a place of shutdown in an area Maybe you're shut down in an area where you feel alone, or shut down in an area where of work or not working, or shut down in an area of church or no church, or shut down in the area of social life or no social life, shut down in an area of education or no education, shut down in an area of living or dying, shut down in an area of have some place to live, don't have some place to live. Look, these are real situations, whether you're in them or someone else is in them. And how we respond determines whether we're going to have an area within us that cultivates victory, or an area within us that cultivates either victim or give up. Victim or give up. Victims don't necessarily give up. Victims sometimes just want to coddle that crisis or coddle that pain because they don't know what to do. Or they're so accustomed to someone else taking care of them that they remain in that place on purpose. Because why? You're going to do it. So, this is for you, to encourage you today to move from shutting down to standing up. Shutting down to standing up. Having courage in your life. Being brave. It's difficult to do if you don't even recognize where you are and what's happening in you. You may not even see it. Be open to hear the thought and the idea of someone else that wants to point something out to you. I'll tell you something. Years ago, for a couple of years, again, it takes about 2 years to get my attention, it sounds like, if you re-listen to the video. For a couple of years, every so often someone would ask me, Donna, do you eat? Are you anorexic? I'm like, have you seen me eat? Of course I'm not anorexic. This went on for a couple of years. But do you know what? Without sharing everything with you, can you just hear me and let me tell you, I was anorexic. I've been anorexic since I was around 16 years old. And I honestly didn't even know it. I didn't even know. It wasn't the kind of anorexia where you go and you don't eat from weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and you go into skin and bones. No. And it wasn't about my image at all. No. My inability to eat and my ability to not eat and only eat a little bit when I did eat, or eat enough to move forward, was really based on someone who died when I was young. And that place lodged inside of me. And I figured if I ate, I would die too. And that stayed with me for many years before it was exposed. And it was exposed because people kept asking me these questions. And eventually, it got through to my noggin. And God began to talk to me about it. And then I began to hear, and then I began to walk through from being shut down in that area to standing up in that area. And then God even positioned me somewhere where I had to eat 3 meals a day for 4 years. And He plumped me up. He put some weight on my bones after that, because I had turned into some bone, but not the bone that you see in most anorexia people. But that was an area where I was shut down and I didn't know. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is your will. Your will with regards to being shut down. There are many that's like, well, I'm just going to choose out of my will to do this, or I'm going to choose out of my will to do that, and I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And that's very well and good. And yes, we have to have our will in alignment here in order to be successful. However, in that place of your will, doing it alone is not going to work. Just you and your will is not powerful. Just you and your will is not victorious. Hearing from the one who made you, hearing from the one who lives inside of you, and letting the person of the Godhead, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit living inside you, letting them direct you, now you can be powerful. Now you can be powerful. You can be powerful when you listen to the greatest person who lives inside of you, the one who knows you inside and out, the one who made you in his image. He can give you direction. He can give you ideas. He can give you thoughts in your journey. So that's not just you and your will. I'm going to exercise the 9th fruit of the Spirit, and I'm going to exercise self-control, and I'm going to have my will. Well, you know what? You need a will, and I need a will. However, that being said, without Father, Son, and Holy Spirit directing, then it's just about you doing what you think. Doing what you think. So listen, I want to encourage you today to engage the person of the Holy Spirit living inside you. Someone else said something. We have to be patient with ourselves in the process. Although we may be surprised with how quickly we find strength, kind of like Grandpa in Willy Wonka when Charlie gets the golden ticket. That's awesome. If you don't remember that movie, you might want to watch the old one. He got the golden ticket, and all of a sudden, he was healed. Woo! I'm healed, yes! He was dancing around, doing a jig. Woo! And he was ready to roll. Before that, he'd been getting fed in bed, and, getting himself all caressed and his loungewear, He had everything done for him, but then, woo, he got the golden ticket. So listen, maybe you're somebody's golden ticket. Maybe you have the life and the power of God inside of you to cause somebody else to rise up out of their bed. That's powerful. If you don't carry that power, maybe you carry the power enough to encourage them enough to move their legs to the side of the bed where they're willing to decide to get up. Take it a step at a time, my friends. Take it a step at a time, my friends. Know that God is good. And being shut down and staying shut down does not have to be your portion, does not have to be your future. And you can move out of that past into a present place of knowing the goodness of God and the power of God and the strength of God to rise to your feet and to stand, because in that area of your greatest shutdown can indeed be your victory. It can be your victory. So if you have an area where you've been shut down in privately, just look at that area. Think about the area for a moment. And I want you to consider the thoughts of God in that area to rise. I want you to consider the thoughts of God, the power of God within you to rise, to pour into that place to rise. Just consider that place. Hold that place in your hand. Just hold that place in your hand. You see that place in your hand? Look at that place. And now let God pour his opinion in that place. His opinion is always victorious. He wins, right? He already won. He wants us to lean into his victory. So it's our victory. So we can see that the victory within us is for us as well. Someone mentioned that no one is hopeless. In other words, no one is completely trapped. No one is a place where they can not move. No one is a place where they have to remain there. So we only get to love. He gives us eyes to see and hearts to hear what our role is to help someone else. So right now, back to praying, back to hearing God's presence in this place. I want you to find his courage, his victory, his power in that place where you've been shut down. In that place where you've been shut down. Because no one is a lost cause and you are worth getting up. In that place where you're shut down, I want you to visualize it rising. Maybe it's an area where you have felt worthless. An area where you have felt like no one loves you. An area where you have been consumed with emptiness. Consumed with feeling like you have no friends. Consumed with feeling like your health will never recover. These kind of things. And I want you to let God breathe on that area. I want you to imagine yourself rising in that area. I want you to just imagine yourself rising in that area. In that area. In that area. Take one area. Just take one area. I have an area. I'm looking at that area with me. And honestly, what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing myself take action in those areas. I'm seeing myself take the action and following through all the way to the last part. I'm seeing myself take action in those areas. See yourself take action in those areas so that you go from shut down to stand up, because you're worth it. Because you're worth it. Father, I thank you for your friends. I bless your friends. I thank you that we're your sons and we're your daughters, and your presence lives within us. And God, I just come into agreement with your victory. I come into agreement with our being co-crucified, co-buried, and co-resurrected. That we have the strength and the power of your presence within us to have a new thought and to take action in areas where we've been slow or literally incapable of taking actions in. We agree that we can rise. We agree that we can stand up. We agree with you and with what you're doing. We agree with your power and your authority in our lives. And we thank you for all you're doing within us, that a world will taste and see and know that you are good and you're a God and there's no one like you. Receive his presence. I want to encourage you in your life, your lifestyle. Take maybe 5 minutes a day just to lay in a situation, lay on a couch, lay on a floor, lay on a bed, and just lay there and listen. Listen for the voice of truth inside, the voice of love, the voice of victory. These ideas that tell you to give up, these ideas that tell you to turn in, these ideas that tell you to give in to the voice in your head, they're not from the one who you're made like. Those are not from a place of belief and trust and love. So lean into belief. Lean into love. See yourself doing the very things that you want to do. You may not be able to do them immediately. It may be a process till you can do those things. But if you arise inside, the chances of you getting to do those things is far greater than if you just allow yourself to remain a victim, or allow yourself to remain shut down, or to allow someone else to remain a victim, or someone else to shut down. Love as a person, and let that love reside in you. Listen, if you want to receive other videos like this and want to understand more about moving forward in ways that are true and real and being free from emotions that trap you, you can subscribe at the top and get a free video on how to move forward. It's www.newdaywithdonnamae.com. You'll see the link at the top. And you can get a free video that I did that trains you, a free video training on how to move forward. So I bless you, I bless you, I bless you. Share this with a friend. Share this with a friend. And I'll see you soon. Until then, bye. Donna Reiners. Youre the Light with Donna Mae.